There's a moment every gardener eventually faces. Your compost is ready, dark, rich, crumbly, and alive with that earthy smell of good soil. But now comes the next big question. What do you do with it if you're not quite ready to use it? How do you store this black gold so it stays just as potent and microbially rich months down the line? Surprisingly, storing compost isn't as straightforward as just tossing it in a bin and forgetting it. If not stored properly, compost can go anaerobic, attract pests, or lose its microbial punch. Today on Hydrohaven, we're diving deep into 5 tried-and-true compost storage methods that actually work. Whether you're gardening in a tight urban space or managing a homestead, you'll find a method that fits your setup and keeps your compost in prime condition. Let's get one thing clear up front. Compost is still alive even after it matures. It's full of microbes, fungi, beneficial bacteria, and nutrients. If stored incorrectly, you can suffocate those microbes or encourage the wrong kind of growth. So preserving that biological life is the main goal of safe compost storage. Each of the 5 methods we'll cover is rooted in this principle. Keep the compost aerated, moist, but not soggy, and protected. Garbage bags, yeah, they're actually a budget-friendly standby for storing compost. Believe it or not, a strong, heavy-duty garbage bag can be a very effective compost storage solution. This method is especially popular among apartment gardeners and folks with limited space. All you really need to do is loosely fill the bag with finished compost, leaving a bit of space at the top. Then just roll the bag closed, not tightly sealed though, to keep some airflow going. You definitely don't want the compost to suffocate in an airtight environment. Stored this way in a shady, cool spot like a garage, your compost can actually stay stable for weeks or even months. But keep in mind, garbage bags aren't breathable. That means if the compost is even slightly too moist, it can start to smell, ferment, or develop anaerobic zones. To avoid this, only store well-cured compost in bags, and check occasionally for excess moisture. You can even poke a few small holes with a fork if you want to boost airflow. Just be cautious about critters. Bags are easy targets for rats or raccoons if left outdoors. Plastic totes, the midterm marvel. If you're looking for something more durable than a garbage bag but still compact, plastic totes with lids are a great option. Think storage bins from your garage, those rugged containers designed to stack and store gear. They can double as excellent compost holders. Simply fill a tote about 3/4 full with finished compost. Leave the lid loosely on top to allow a small amount of airflow or, drill a few small holes into the sides and top for ventilation. Plastic totes are ideal for 1 to 2 months of compost storage. So plastic totes are, pretty awesome for composting because they're sturdy, stackable, and honestly much better at keeping out pests. However, you still need to keep an eye on the internal moisture. If the compost starts to feel dry, just sprinkle a bit of water. But if it feels wet or smells kinda sour, go ahead and crack the lid open wider, or give the contents a good stir. Place your totes in a shaded location to avoid overheating, especially during those hot summer months. The microbial life inside really appreciates stability more than anything else. Burlap bags. These are the breathable, old-school method. For those of you who love natural materials and, more traditional methods, burlap bags offer an excellent breathable option. They allow for good airflow, which means your compost stays aerobic and microbially active. So, you'll want to fill the bags loosely and store them on a dry, raised surface like a wooden pallet or maybe a concrete slab. It's important to avoid setting them on soil or porous wood since, moisture from the compost can soak into the surface and cause rot or even mold. Burlap actually works particularly well in dry climates, where airflow is needed more than moisture retention. The downside is that it doesn't protect well against rain or extreme cold. If you live in a wet area, you'll want to keep burlap-stored compost under a roofed structure, shed, or porch. It's also worth checking the bottom of the bags every few weeks. Because they wick moisture, the lower half can become soggy if left unchecked. 5-gallon buckets, small-scale, high control. 5-gallon buckets are a backyard gardener's best friend. They're cheap, stackable, and come with lids, perfect for compact compost storage. The trick with using these buckets is ventilation. If the lid seals tightly, you'll need to drill a few small holes along the top edge and sides. This allows air to circulate and prevents the compost from turning anaerobic. Buckets are especially handy if you want to portion compost for specific beds or plants. They're also easy to label and transport. Just make sure to store them in a place where they won't bake in the sun or freeze in the winter. So, like with all other methods, you want to preserve a stable, moderate environment for the compost microbes. In colder climates, buckets can even be stored in a basement or, a root cellar. One unexpected benefit of bucket storage? Well, you can actually pre-blend amendments like crushed eggshells, biochar, or worm castings into each bucket, so that when planting time arrives, you're all set to go with a tailor-made soil booster. Covered compost piles are honestly the long-term solution. If you have the space, there's really nothing quite as flexible and reliable as a good old-fashioned compost pile with a tarp cover. This method is just perfect for long-term storage, especially if you tend to generate compost faster than you actually use it. Go ahead and build a compact pile of mature compost in a shaded part of your garden or yard. Then, just loosely cover it with a breathable tarp or maybe even an old sheet. The cover protects from excessive rain, snow, and sun while maintaining enough humidity inside the pile. The key with tarp-covered piles is monitoring. Every few weeks, give the pile a gentle turn or poke it with a fork to check internal moisture and prevent compaction. Insects and worms may move in, don't panic. That's a sign the compost is still biologically active. If it dries out too much, just give it a light sprinkle. But if it gets soaked, fold the tarp more tightly and let it air out for a bit. This method is especially valuable for those who plan to store compost over an entire season or even a year. You can even use multiple piles for different batches, one maturing, one stored, and one active. Over time, this rotating system ensures a steady supply of usable compost without waste. Regardless of which method you choose, the goal is always the same. Preserve the microbial vitality of your compost until you're ready to use it. Think of compost not as waste, but as living inoculant, a microbial bank account that can be cashed in when your soil needs a boost. Each of these 5 methods works because it acknowledges the living nature of compost and, offers it the space, air, and moisture balance it needs to stay viable. Hydrohaven gardeners know that great soil doesn't happen by accident. It's really the result of small, consistent actions that stack over time. By learning how to store compost correctly, you protect your hard-earned efforts and, honestly, guarantee that your next planting season starts off rich, fertile, and full of life. If this guide helped you rethink your compost routine, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with fellow gardeners, drop your questions or tips in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to Hydrohaven for more in-depth, practical gardening wisdom. Let's keep building better soil together, one handful of compost at a time.